Hi everybody, it's Bob Ost, and I believe I lied last week because I said last week it was our 252nd consecutive community gathering. It wasn't. Today is our 252nd community gathering. This is something that we've been doing since shutdown. It was a response to shutdown originally. Community service for people to have someplace to go and talk about theater and be part of a community while we were all in isolation. So we started at April 17th, 2020. So we're going to have our fifth anniversary in a month and a half. Oh my goodness. But we've been doing it every week, and it's a challenge to find things to talk about for 252 consecutive weeks. However, it's also in some ways very fun and very gratifying. And Our conversations, of course, have evolved since shutdown, Lord knows. Um, I hate to say it, but COVID's still with us. I have friends who have COVID right now. It's just like, stop it already, COVID. Leave us alone. But it's still going on. But at least we are safe, and we know how to deal with this, and we're hopefully stronger and wiser for having gone through a couple years in quarantine. I always felt like COVID was God's way of saying, everybody go to your rooms and think about what you've been doing. And a lot of us did, and a lot of us were thinking, and a lot of us came out of shutdown with new ideas, new perceptions about life, new understandings. Um, some of us just came out of it more stupid than ever, but that's the world we live in, and hopefully we will survive the next 4 years. I won't say anything more than that about politics, but I do want to say that thanks to one of the people that works as part of TRU, Rob Hoffman, I was introduced to the state of Minnesota. I actually now know a lot about Minnesota, and Rob always has great people that he knows who are in the arts in Minnesota, which is really very important. We're a New York-based theater organization. We've always been a small service organization in Manhattan. But because of COVID and because of shutdown, because of Zoom, my friend Zoom, we have become, well, actually global. I mean, today we have somebody in the room from Scotland, but we have Australia, we have UK, we have people from Germany, we have Singapore, Malaysia, and we have the east and west coast of the United States. We get people from Canada. So we're all over the place. So one of the things that COVID pushed me to do was to not only acknowledge that there was theater outside of New York, but to embrace it. And part of why what I've been doing over these 4.5 years is, as much as possible, trying to bring in people who are involved in other areas of theater than New York. Today, you're going to meet Nicole Watson. Now, the company that she runs is based in Minnesota, but it is really as national and possibly as global as we are. I'm sure that they embrace and support writers from everywhere. But they're based in Minneapolis, and I have to say that Minneapolis. I went to the Minneapolis Fringe many years ago. It's amazing. It's a thriving theater city. It's really a cool place with amazing theaters and amazing things going on. Um, we're gonna be talking about playwrights and playwriting. Although I have a feeling that Nicole and I might talk about things other than that. But we're gonna start with talking about playwriting, and the playwrights. Uh, I always want to say center. It's playwrights. Oh, it's playwright center, um, and what they do. They do a lot. They do a lot. I don't even want to dare to start telling you about all that they do. I want to bring on Nicole right now. So Nicole, you're going to come on and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to the Playwright Center. Oh, I said I always want to say Playwrights Unit. It's Playwright Center. Got it.
That's right. Thank you for the warm welcome. Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole A. Watson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the producing artistic director at the Playwright Center located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Although we'll be moving to St. Paul, still in Minnesota. In a couple months, we're getting a new space that is currently under construction. I have been here for now 10 months, so I'm the new producing artistic director, replacing Jeremy Cohen, who was the AD for about 14 years. So we're in a really exciting moment for the center and the work we're doing. I did my undergrad at Yale in history and was a history teacher for several years, and did all the school plays and was a regular volunteer at the 52nd Street Project in Hell's Kitchen for many, many years, and then transitioned into being an arts educator and then a freelance director. And spent most of my life in New York, in Brooklyn, and directed regionally. And then in 2017, 18, my husband, who is a playwright, received a Jerome Fellowship. And so we packed our bags and we moved to Minnesota, where I had never been and never thought I would be. And we sort of fell in love with the Twin Cities. It is a vibrant, amazing arts town. It also has a lot of lakes. And as someone who loves both the city and the country, I think it's probably a perfect location because it has both things. Everything I'd want out of a city and everything I'd want out of living by a lake. And then I became the associate artistic director at Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda, Maryland. And so we moved there, and I was there until 2020. And during 2020, I became the associate artistic director at the McCarter Theater in Princeton, New Jersey. And so we moved there. And then last April, I became the producing artistic director here at the Playwright Center, and we moved back to Minnesota. So we're here now.
Well, you certainly have been around. My
Yeah.
goodness. So where let's talk about you some more because I we'll get to the playwrights
Go for it.
um, center. Excuse me. Lost my voice for a second. So what is it about what is your personal stakes in theater and in the arts? What is it that are you also a writer?
I'm
Are
not a
you an
writer.
artist?
I'm a director.
You're a
I'm a
director.
director. And I'm a new play director. I do not have an MFA in directing. And so, what I tell people is the reason I am a director is because playwrights trusted me with their plays. And so, I built a career around doing premieres, around workshopping new plays, and then doing revivals of plays that haven't been done often and sort of supporting their work. I'm a huge fan of Pearl Cleage. I did Blues for an Alabama Sky at the Guthrie. During COVID, I curated a digital festival to celebrate the work of Adrienne Kennedy. So that's sort of my background in directing. And again, when I was in New York, I worked a lot at Working Theater, which is a small theater that supports plays by, for, and about working class people. I was the teen director, Shakespeare director at the 52nd Street Project for several years. So most of my work in terms of directing until I started working regionally was working with young people, working with working class communities, working with immigrants. And then I assisted a lot. I assisted on the piano lesson that Ruben Santiago Hudson did in 2012. And I worked with him a fair amount. I assisted Andrea Shields a fair amount. And so I had a really wonderful, robust life in New York. And then work started taking me around the country. And I wanted the Playwright Center job when I realized I didn't want to run a large.
That was going to be the next question. Why the Playwrights Center?
Yeah, I love working with artists, and I think my experience of being an associate artistic director, or rather watching my working with my artistic director colleagues, is you move further and further away from the art. The sort of higher you move up in an arts organization food chain, if you would call it. And I discovered that my passion really was working with artists. And the Playwright Center is an artist service organization. We are not a theater. We do not produce plays. We support writers. So we manage over 9 fellowships. And we develop about 55 to 60 new plays a year. On average, we have 47 playwrights, um, at least 47 playwrights who will get a workshop at the Playwright Center with us annually.
Well,
And that
you also have fellowships and you have connections with theaters around the country. And
we do.
you make connections for people.
We do make, I mean, we are also an advocacy organization. So, between our fellowship program, between all the members that we have, and members can be anywhere. We have members, as you pointed out, in 23 countries and across this country. Um, And so part of the work is supporting the development of new work and becoming an advocate for the playwrights we support. Through our membership portal, we have an extremely robust clearinghouse of all the playwright opportunities that exist, both here in this country and around the world. And I don't go into the member portal. We just got a refresh, but it's a really useful tool for playwrights. I know it's submission season for a lot of playwrights over and over and over again. So we try and be a sort of clearinghouse. Our goal is to support writers at all phases of their development. So if you're just starting out, if you're a hobbyist, if you're a professional playwright who's been writing for 1 year, 20 years, 30 years. And so our programming is designed to support playwrights at different phases of their careers. And the 9 fellowships that we manage run the gamut from, early career playwright to we have a McKnight Commission, which is for writers who've been writing in the field for a significant amount of time. So the goal is really to support writers through all their different processes, both online and in person.
How do you identify out of 2,500 playwrights in your circle? How do you identify who belongs where? I mean, we have there are so many different voices. Playwrights have different voices. They have
Yeah.
different aesthetics. They have some of them may make it in commercial theater. Some of them may not because they write non-traditional pieces, authentic voices. We're going to talk about that too. I want to talk about
The
diversity.
membership is we don't pick our members. If you
Right.
want to be a member of the Playwright Center, then you can go to our website and you can see which membership is right for you. And then you have access to the resources that we offer, which is the submission portal. We have a thing called Script Club where another playwright can read your script and give you feedback. You can do sort of a group reading. We have classes, some of which are a semester long. We have sort of workshops that are maybe just a weekend. We have some workshops that are just an evening. We have podcasts. So, in terms of how do we support all these playwrights, again, like in the building, right, on annually, we support our fellows. So those are the Jerome Fellows, the Many Voices Fellows. We have 3 different McKnight Fellowships. We've taken over the Ventures Fellowship from the
And
large.
what are the requirements?
Yeah.
How does somebody get one of the fellowships? What do they need to do, and
Sure.
what
So
level
the
do they have to be
fellowships
at?
are based on a couple different criteria. So Jerome Fellowships are for early career playwrights who have had no more than 2 professional productions. And the criteria for professional production is about like a theater that has produced it and has 16 performances and the artists were paid. And I think there's some other guidelines. And
So
if you,
it could be as simple as a showcase, a New York showcase. That's 16
yeah,
performances.
yes,
Okay.
yes, it could be. And you can have no more than 2. If you receive,
I had an off-Broadway show once, so I guess I don't qualify anymore.
well, no more than 2.
Well, I had that and I had a whole
You've had
of
a whole, so
slew
yes,
of
you would not
showcases.
qualify for a Jerome right now. Um, and the Jerome Fellowship is now, we're just finishing up our first time doing this, but the Jerome Fellowship used to be a 1 year fellowship, and it is now a 2 year fellowship with health insurance. And so, any recipient of the Jerome Fellowship, you have to relocate to Minnesota. And I will say, I have definitely met playwrights who are worried about winter and therefore don't apply. I think the winter keeps people away from here. I just think you really just have to get the right winter coat.
It just seems like sad that, not liking the cold will, put a hamper on your career.
I have met playwrights who have said that I can't apply because of the winter. And I'm not going to argue with that. I know. I think boo as well. I mean, I'm originally from Jamaica. I never thought I would spend this much time in cold
Oh,
weather, but here we are. So the Jerome
that's
Fellowship,
that's
yeah.
major.
Um, the Many Voices Fellowship are for sort of underrepresented voices. That's also a 2 year fellowship with health insurance for no more than 2 productions. Our mid-career fellowships, most of our playwrights are core writers. So outside of the membership, and core writers are usually mid-career playwrights, and that's 3 years of support. And what that means is you'll come to the Playwright Center for about a week to workshop a play, and you get that support for 3 years. Um, and then the McKnight Fellowships, we have 3 of them. And you either have to be based in Minnesota or in New York to be eligible for a McKnight Fellowship. That is a requirement of the McKnight Foundation. And so the McKnight Commission in Residency is a commission to a mid-career playwright. This year it's Roger Q. Mason. And it comes with a financial stipend, and it supports about 3 trips out here and the support of new work.
Let me ask you something because we're a producers organization, so I always look at things
Yeah.
from the business point of view. When you give these fellowships, are you saying you're giving it out of your own Playwrights Center money, or you represent foundations and you give it on behalf of the foundation?
Yeah, so the Jerome Foundation and the McKnight Foundation help resource our fellowships. The Jerome
So,
Foundation does not resource 100% of our fellowships, but they provide a certain amount of money. And so our Jerome Fellowships are to support that work. And Jerome supports several other arts organizations here in Minnesota. So there are Jerome Fellowships in music, in dance, in filmmaking. And so we are one of the recipients of the Theater Fellowship, and we manage the Jerome Fellowships on behalf of the
so
Jerome
in other
Foundation.
words, it's the Playwrights Center has their own budget, and that's part of the annual budget because you get. I was going to ask how you support yourself. You get donation grants.
We have donation grants. We have some sources of funding, federal, state, local. We're also, Minnesota is a vibrant arts state in part because I think it is part of all, there's some portion of the sales tax. It's written into the Minnesota State Constitution that a portion of sales tax goes to arts funding. And that is one of the reasons why there are so many theaters here in town and so many small arts organizations here in town, because the state itself has a significant amount of arts funding. And that supports both arts in the Twin Cities and throughout the state. Minnesota is a sort of outlier in this country. There was a thing that came out a couple months ago called State of the Arts, and it looked at arts funding and artistic communities in all the 50 states. And most states that have a significant rural population did not have significant arts funding. And it was states that have more urban populations, have lots of artistic resources. Minnesota is an outlier in that we are a state that has a significant rural population and significant arts funding. And so our work is both here in the Twin Cities, and we build partnerships to the best of our abilities with theaters that are spread out throughout the state. I think this is a really wonderful place to be for that reason, is that there are theaters both here in the Twin Cities and also small community theaters throughout the state.
A reminder to the room that we want you to be engaged in this. So if you want to have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. And Owen, I'm going to give you permission to interrupt me without my asking and saying, "Oh, there's a question." And
Absolutely.
okay. So I want to make sure that we get a little dialogue going on with the room. So there's there's these programs that you've
So sorry,
just
let
talked
me just
about,
finish
but
about the revenue stream because I think that is what you brought up. Our budget
yeah,
is about 2.7 million, which is small depending on who you ask. I mean, we're in the
not
same town as the Guthrie, so
you asked me, it ain't small.
that is a very significant difference in our budgets. And we receive money from the Jerome Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, and the Ventris Foundation towards our fellowships. And then the core writers is funded through our own operating budget. Because we are not a producing theater, we do not have a steady income stream. So our budget,
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
yeah. So our budget is not something that really increases a lot over time, because we manage these fellowships, we support these writers, and we are funded by these foundations and by the state and by the federal government, although federal government funding is going away.
Oh yeah.
So
That's the
never
thing.
mind
It
that.
never was much, and now it's not
It
going to be
wasn't, and now
anything.
it's, even less. Um, so we don't have a steady income stream. Where some of our income stream comes from are the classes and the workshops that we do. We also do partnerships with theater. So if a theater might reach out to us, or a playwright might reach out to us and say, "Hey, I got this commission from this theater. They can't develop the play. Is there any way we could partner?" And we sort of do that, and the theater will pay us some money to develop the play. That is based on the size of the theater and the budget of the overall theater. So, for example, if the Guthrie asked us to workshop a play, the Guthrie would pay most of that workshop. But if a smaller theater, such as like, I'll just do the ones here in Minnesota, like if Mixed Blood or Theater Moo, which are much smaller organizations, asked us to partner or workshop a play, we do something more like a 50-50 split around the resources. So, we don't have a steady income stream. Our income comes from the classes we do, from our membership program, and from our grants. It's a thing that might change moving forward. We are opening a new playwright center in St. Paul in a couple of months. The space is twice the size of our current building. And I think because of the space, because of the updated space, it's an old warehouse that we're gutting. I think we'll be able to have a rental income stream, not for a production, but for a conference or probably weddings in the summer when we don't produce. But
How
these
about rehearsal
are some of the
space?
yeah, or rehearsal space. So these are some of the growth points that we're looking at, as we're trying to think about what is the way that we can have a sustainable model moving forward. But again, most of our money goes towards the artists, and that is the point. And so we would like to keep it that way.
Well, we have similar missions, I think, but I don't do it quite at the scope that you do it. But we basically do want to support artists and writers. My thing is though, people always want me to read their plays and see their plays. I keep saying I don't have to read or see your play to know that I want to support what you do. And are you familiar with the works of everybody that you work with?
No, and I will say that's part of it. So again, I sort of tell people now that working at the Playwright Center on some level is the sort of opposite of working at a producing theater. So as an associate artistic director, right, season planning, I'm reaching out to playwrights, I'm reaching out to agents, playwrights are reaching out to me, agents are reaching out to me, and I'm reading a ton of scripts and curating a season, right, by picking the plays at Playwright Center, and I'll speak right now just of our fellowships, right? So again, anyone can be a member if you want to. Anyone can be a member. We all of our fellowships are chosen by panels of other artists, and those panels change every year. So every year someone who's applying for a Jerome Fellowship is being evaluated by a group of 3 to 5 of their peers who have read. And as Cindy pointed out, she reads for, I think, Cindy, you said you read for Jerome. We reach out to, I think, over 300 playwrights and arts administrators a year and invite them to read scripts for our fellowship programs. And so the playwrights that are selected for the fellowships are selected by a group of their peers. And then myself and my staff, we support what those artists want to do. So ultimately, I will read a lot of plays that are written by our fellows and by our members, but I'm not selecting artists the way I would select an artist if I was working at a Lort Theater or another regional theater for a sort of season selection. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and I basically I don't I want to support people in what they're doing and not have an opinion. That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's one of the reasons why we have our script club program where members can submit a play and it can be read by a group of their peers. Right now, that happens on Zoom because we have members all over the country and all over the world. When we open our new building, we'll be able to do some more of that in person. We also can do pairings where we can, if you have a play and you're like, I'd really like some feedback from that play, we can find another playwright to do a feedback session with you. So what we really try and work on is saying, well, uh, there are so many playwrights in all different phases of their career, and how can we make sure that writers are in conversation with other writers around their work? Because there's no way that myself and my staff of 20 could be responsible for reading and evaluating the dearth of work that exists right now in the American theater, you know?
Let me ask you
We have a
this.
couple of questions from Lee Roscoe. First,
Mhm.
is there anything for playwrights who are outsider writers without those two or more acceptable slash traditional productions? And then she also wants to know what the cost for the group sessions for playwrights is.
Well, did I misunderstand? I thought that the production thing was a criteria for people not to have access to those
So
fellowships.
the two or more productions is a criteria for the Jerome Fellowship, right?
Oh,
It is the specific criteria for the Jerome Fellowship. That criteria is different for the McKnights, and it's different for the core writers, and it's different from the venturous writers. So each fellowship has its own criteria. Um, for example, we have a fellowship called the Many Voices Mentee, and those tend to be very early career playwrights who don't even have a full script often to submit. They sort of will submit their first act or their first rough draft. So again, the goal of the fellowships is to support writers in all phases of their career. To be a member of the Playwright Center and have access to all of the classes and the script submission and script club and dramaturgy work, it doesn't matter. You could have no productions, you could have 50 productions. The membership is open.
I was going to ask you a question about yourself again. Your background is as a director. Um, do you actually, when you were a director, when you were working on plays, are you also a dramaturg?
I mean, it's sort of how I leveraged making the career transition because I was a history teacher. I would tell theaters that I could do my own research in dramaturgy. And that is sort of how I positioned myself as I left teaching to move more into directing. Um, I think dramaturgs are really important because they do different things for different playwrights, and for directors. So I do my own dramaturgy, and I also work with dramaturgs depending on the play that I'm about to do. So I'm about to do a show at Two River. I actually start next week, and we
Two
have
River in Jersey?
yes, in Red Bank, yes.
Oh my goodness. So you're going to visit the East Coast, are you?
And I visit the East Coast for a bit,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Um, what was I going to ask you? I was asking you about the dramaturgy. Oh, I wanted to actually move from that into the authentic voices of, of different aspects of our culture. I remember Woody King was on a panel with me, and we were talking about um, commercial opportunities for Black writers. And he was saying that commercial opportunities were the worst thing that could happen to Black writers because basically it forced them to go outside of their their authentic voice. Um, do you think that commercial theater is opening up a little bit more and is more open to diverse voices? And again, this is another thing I want to add to this is we have a play reading series like for 20 years now, and my readers, hard as I try to make them diverse, my readers are not that diverse. And what is proven time and time again is that they gravitate towards the plays that are more familiar to their experience. And so I know that we need more voice, we need more dramaturgs, and we need more people in a position to actually listen to and understand um, indigenous voices, BIPOC voices of all aspects. What is your feeling about that? Are we making more room for those voices now? I know that given the fact that we are now in a whole new place right, as of January 26th.
Sure.
Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about were we approaching a place where we were a little bit more open to diverse voices?
Sure. Well, I think a commercial theater is only going to do something that they believe is commercially viable. That is what a commercial theater is going to do. I do believe, again, I've been really fortunate to direct across the country, and there are some theaters that I think are pushing the boundaries of the voices they want to support. I think with COVID and the fact that, and again, I feel like I'm an original New Yorker who has moved to the Midwest. But I do know that following COVID, a lot of artists relocated. And I think what is happening now, or what I hope is happening now, or that theaters across the country are figuring out what are the local communities and local voices that need to be served, or what are the stories that are specific to that place, as opposed to, I think, the moment we were in where, Doll's House Part 2 was on Broadway, and then every theater programmed Doll's House Part 2, whether that play was right for that community or not. So I actually do think that the number of voices in the American theater are expanding. I think theaters are figuring out what their producing models are. I think we're in a moment where some theaters are still having robust subscription models and other theaters are not. And I think that that is also impacting season selection. Um, and how artistic directors are thinking about what's going to sell tickets. And everybody needs to sell tickets, right? Like that's the other
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
that's the other thing, you know, and I will say, even from an artistic perspective, no actor really wants to do a play to an empty house. We all benefit from having robust, engaged audiences, right? Financially and artistically. And that is what builds community and, you know, gets us all to come together. So it's a value for all of us. So I do think the voices are expanding. And I think you know, we will continue to see what happens over the next couple of years. Again, one of the reasons why the Playwright Center job was so important to me is that um, I actually am meeting all kinds of writers with all kinds of voices. I know not all of those writers will be produced as frequently. You know, for example, Lauren Yee workshopped The Great Leap at Playwright Center. That is a play, and that is a playwright whose work has been produced all across the country. There are other playwrights that have workshop plays and they're still trying to get their first production, you know, but and I see a question about like $25,000 is not a lot of money and how does this work, which is an excellent question that I want to address. Oh, sorry. Hello? Oh, sorry. I have a house guest. I anyway, who's another playwright who's visiting. Anyway, no, $25,000 is not a full-time salary. And the interesting thing is that is the most money we've ever been able to give away. You know, if you, I had coffee with Jeffrey Hatcher, who's a former fellow, you know, and is a prolific playwright. And he said, you know, I
There
moved to
is.
Minnesota for $5,000. And I said, I know, you know, and so the fellowship money does not provide a full-time income or offset the need for a second job if someone is invited to have a Jerome Fellowship. Many of our fellows find part-time work, either teaching at one of the colleges or universities here, or they have a day job that they can either bring here or do remotely. It is to offset the need for whatever a 40, 45-hour week might look like, and to provide more time and more opportunities for that writing time. So I just wanted to say that I saw that question in the chat. And the Jerome Fellowship is not for everyone, you know. I just want to respond to that question. What I have found in the past is some fellows move here, and the money does offset, it creates more time for them. And it allows them what that time ends up being used for, in my limited time here and all the Jerome Fellows that I've known in the past, is that it's more time to write and they start really building connections here with the theaters in the Twin Cities. And we have found that many Jerome Fellows who move here for either a one-year fellowship or now the two-year fellowship don't leave. They stay. They remain in Minnesota, they remain in the Twin Cities, and then they become part of the artistic community here. But I just wanted to acknowledge it does not offset the need for other work. And many of our fellows do take other work, teaching or whatever other skills. It's,
So,
you know, it's
so
still
yeah,
being
basically,
freelance art.
Eric, yes, $25,000 does not support somebody for a year in any city.
No,
So,
no. But it's
um,
$25,000 you don't have to find someplace else.
yeah, it's a nice chunk. Basically, it's a very meaningful chunk of
Yeah.
money for
I mean,
people.
I wish we had more, but until our models
I'm having a
change.
hard time coming up with $5,000 to support the reading of a new show. We do readings, and we used to be able to do them for like 3,500 to 4,000, and now everything's gotten so expensive. It's hard to do them for less than 65 to $7,500, and that's a lot for us. We're like much smaller than you, much smaller. Um, uh,
I'm
Owen,
just
any
trying
other?
to scroll to see if there are other questions
Yeah,
that
Owen, do you see any other questions?
I haven't seen any couple of comments.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
here's
Lee
one
is
from
asking.
Connor right
Yeah,
here. How does one become a script reader for fellowship, script club, etc.? Does the center ask people?
Yes, that is an excellent question to which I think I'm probably going to give an incomplete answer. I know for the fellowship program, sort of we email, I don't know how many hundreds of playwrights a year to ask. This is my first year going through all of the fellowship programs. Again, I started last April, when most of the fellows for this year were chosen. So this is my first year going through the whole process. I think Script Club and the other ones are through the membership program. Um, and I think that is my incomplete answer because I actually don't, I know it's different for both things. And so the panelists are selected, myself and the associate artistic director and the director of fellowships. We sort of look at the list of who served on the panels in the past and who are arts leaders that we'd love to have in the room. And we try and make sure that each committee has a different group of people and a sort of different aesthetic. And we also try and make sure that no one has read the same play 2 years in a row. So if you applied for a Jerome Fellowship last year and didn't get it, if you submit again this year, we try and make sure that there's someone new reading your play. And then we think in that way, the play and the people who become advocates for that play ultimately do find one another. I know my husband applied for the Jerome Fellowship maybe 4 times before he received his Jerome, and it finally, the universe, the person who loved his play and his play finally met in that room. So
I have spent
time.
so much time explaining this to writers. It's always it's just the luck of the draw so much. I mean, when we're doing our play reading series, it just happens that three people will read your play and like it. It just happens that three people will read your play and maybe not like it. And it's nothing to do with, I mean, it is something to do with the play, but whether it's good or bad, no, it has to do with who's reading it,
Yeah.
who resonates with it and who doesn't resonate with it.
And for the
Um,
fellowships, every play is read by two readers. So,
we do
and
three.
sometimes
We
a
do three.
third. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So.
do three. I bel 'cause I'm a playwright, so I come from that point of view, and I don't think that I get a valid reading from two people. I think three gets us closer, and it's still not ideal.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Cindy is saying that you pay $9 per script for people to read.
I believe so. Cindy, that might be right.
Eight. It's
Might be
$8. Eight.
Eight
different.
dollars. I mean, I can do that. I haven't been paying people. I didn't think I could pay them $8. I mean, if I could pay people $8, I would do that. I think I
Yeah.
would do that. Oh no, that's eight times 96 reads. No, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, I think if any organization, both mine and yours, Bob, if only we had more money, we'd pay everybody more. But
Absolutely.
we're trying to figure out, and we all, in our budgets, we try and leave money for childcare because, some of our writers are saying, some playwrights say, oh no, I'm coming for a week and I actually don't want to bring my children. I want the week to myself. And other playwrights will say, I need to bring my child. And so we try and resource childcare and transportation and things like that. And we really do try and support what that artist might need for their process for the duration of their workshop time.
Did we address Lee's question about what's the cost for these group sessions for playwrights?
It depends. You'd have to go to our membership page and see what the classes are and the workshops that we're offering.
Eric Rothman just asked, do you support other dramatic forms like immersive theater, live theater designed for live video streaming, theatrical productions, and social media spaces, or the use? Eric is one of our members who has
I see. Yes,
lots
I
of
see the
interest
question.
in non-traditional spaces, AI and VR and all that.
Uh, I guess I will say maybe, and then I'll expand on that. And so again, in the ways that Playwright Center supports the writers come and tell us what they want to work on. So last week we had part of our public series, we have a thing called In the Lab series, and the playwright is a core writer and had a solo performance musical that they wanted to work on. And we were able to resource them. We were able to find them a band. And it was their first time getting to do the show with a full band and not just a piano. And we have had proposals for audio plays. We've had proposals for sort of devised work. We've had proposals for, I mean, so again, in the ways that I don't think we just do sort of traditional plays, But again, that conversation is driven by what the artist is interested in. But at the end of the day, this was one of the questions where I say, like, the name of the center is called the Playwright Center. So if your main medium is, say, filmmaking, and we don't support filmmaking per se, because again, what we're really hoping to do is to be a year-long resource center for people who consider playwriting, however expansive that looks like to you, to be your sort of main focus. And in this moment, it's really important to us, the Lark no longer exists, right? Which is really unfortunate. I did a lot of work at the Lark. Sundance used to have a new play program. That program does not exist anymore. The O'Neill workshops in the summer, New Harmony workshops in the summer, although I know they're trying to expand their programming to be more year-round. Ojai is a summer new play festival, as is Seven Devils. So we are one of the few year-round new play development centers. And so in this moment, I think I also feel a particular responsibility to make sure that we are resourcing people who want to make work in a theatrical way. I don't want to say just for the stage, but that's really important to us.
It's our concepts of theater are being pushed, so it's hard to say where you're going to land in a year at this point. But right now, if it looks like if it looks like a script, because you're basically starting with the script. If somebody has a concept for a interactive theater piece, how I guess it gets scripted in a way, but it's different from a scripted play.
Well, again, so most of our work is not open to the public. We have a public season, um, which is the Ruth Easton Reading Series, the In the Lab series, and then we have a Play Lab Festival, which we actually didn't do this year because we needed to. It used to be in the fall. After COVID, it moved to the spring. We wanted to move it back to the fall, but we sort of decided that doing a spring festival, opening a new building, and then a fall festival would be really awful for our staff. So we have increased the number of readings we're doing this year, and our big play festival will be the opening artistic event in our new building in the fall.
What about devised theater? Are you in a position where you could actually support somebody who wants, because that would be in some circumstances it's an unwritten piece that is developed through workshops.
Again, one of our current Jerome Fellows, MK Tuanaman, is the deviser, and they decided to use what was their development funds, right? So if you're a Jerome Fellow, you have the $25,000 a year stipend, and then you also have $3,000 that you can use for development. And that can go to a workshop, it can go to travel, it can go to bringing artists in. Most people use their development funds to do either one big workshop or maybe two small workshops. And what happens is, we have an amazing programs manager named Julia Brown, and every artist submits a proposal to Julia Brown and says, I want 5 days and 10 actors and, a parachute or whatever it is. And Julia budgets it and says, that's more than $3,000. How about 10 actors and 3 days and no parachute? And that's how we budget. Right. So we sort of have a pool of money and the playwrights submit proposals. Some people have I guess I would say a traditional script. Other people say, I just want to be in a room with some movers. Other people say, I want to improvise. And then we do the budgeting and say, based on your proposal, we could provide you with this many time and this many artists. Does that work for you? And if you really want to bring in this out-of-town director, then we have to maybe ask you to have fewer local actors. And if you want all local actors, you can have more local actors. So our budgeting matrix is a rather extensive process.
I'm going to ask you some controversial question. I'm going to ask you a different way. What do you think the right means when they talk about woke and they say that they're trying to get rid of woke? I mean, to me, woke meant awareness. What woke meant being politically aware and
I,
conscious.
if I'm being honest, I think the fact that the ideas of being woke and the idea that somehow the letters DEI for me are dog whistles around racism and misogyny and homophobia and all the other bullshit. Again, I'm a history teacher,
Right.
so this is just
I
this
think
is an
they could
old,
use it to, they could use a good history teacher.
yeah, this is an old game being remade, and I think it is outrageous to suggest that having a more expansive world, to having more stories on stage, to having more people be invested in rigorous intelligence, because this is impacting all the fields, right? This is not just about theater anymore. We're watching five-star generals be fired in this moment. So this is old stuff in new clothing as far as I'm concerned, and it's a shame. I think it is a deep shame that the idea of being woke is now a disparaging point of view. My world has been enlivened by the arts and by all the people I have met and all the work I've gotten to do and all the things that are so unlike me. So, I just it's garbage.
I think, I feel like I'm woke because during COVID, I had to sit and think about things and start understanding things, and I had to finally admit that I have white privilege, and I have to be aware of white privilege, and I have to consider when my choices are being made from a position of white privilege, and understand why that's not equitable.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, again, I do not think it hurts us to be able to have honest conversations. So, like, I make a joke. Like, when I was younger, there was no language. I did not know that it was a microaggression. I did not know about privilege. I just knew that I was in situations that felt really awful or I felt disrespected, and I didn't have a name for it. I am grateful that I can live in a moment now where there can be more honest conversations about how we support one another, right? In the arts, we use the word collaboration a lot. I think we have to find ways to mean it. And I think we mean it by really finding ways to be in true respectful dialogue and discussion with one another. Like that is actually what we're supposed to be doing.
The challenge, almost impossible challenge for me, is to be open to accepting that other people have a different reality than mine.
Yeah.
Because I look at the world, I'm going, how do they see that?
Yeah.
How, I mean, and I have to go, well, okay, they're seeing it. I just have to accept that. But this whole pushback on DEIA, I always include A. I'm very
Yeah,
conscious of the
me
disabled
too.
community.
Me
Um,
too. My husband is an artist with a disability, so it is
so
important.
yeah, well, we're going to be doing a town hall next month called "Now You See It, Now You Don't: The
Mm,
Disempowerment of DEIA."
okay.
And I have some interesting people on the panel, and all I know to do is to talk about things. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. I mean, and again, for me, I have such a deep love for theater. And by theater, I mean all of it. Not everything is for me. I don't like everything I see, but my life has been enriched by all the things I've seen and all the points of view that I've seen. And I think the thing that I find um, unfortunate is that somehow this field that we are in that I think is about difference and change, right? Like if I have a subscription to a theater, I go into the same building every 6 weeks and I am transported, right? Right to the Upper West Side or 1920s wherever or outer space or whatever. And that is actually why we should be doing this, not that I should go to the theater and see the same play in the same living room, right? I feel like there are a number of plays in New York where I was like, that is a really unrealistic apartment in New York. You know?
Who lives there?
Right? Who lives there? On what salary did you get that apartment? You know?
What teacher lives in an apartment like that?
Right.
I I
Yeah.
got to tell you, I'm so deeply troubled by what's going on. I don't want to make this political, and also, if there are people discovering this conversation who have different beliefs than mine, I I am fully respectful of your beliefs. Um, I may not understand them, but I will respect them. But I don't understand how. we can basically, we as writers are being told not to do our job. We're
Yeah.
being told don't look at the human experience and don't look for stories that haven't been told. We don't have to keep telling the same stories over and over again. That's already happened. We're now looking for new voices and we're looking for new stories. Um, and yet there's this pushback that we're getting. It's like, no, you mustn't do that. We're not going to give you your funding if you do that.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, we're going to fight the good fight, right? I mean, that's all we can do. And we all get to be here now. This is what I like to say. We all get to be here now because someone before us fought for us. So that is that moral arc, right? If we are on it, we are on it. And so I think we have to continue to be relentless. I know it's really hard. I think technology, it really feels like death by a thousand paper cuts sometimes. I'm still a teacher and I really do worry for young people because
I gotta
I've
say,
gotten this.
I'm very happy with about Zoom. Zoom changed my entire
Yes, Zoom is
organization.
amazing, right? The tech when the technology is useful, it is supremely useful. But the other day I got really nostalgic where I was like, I remember when I was in college, I would go to the library and I wouldn't know what was happening until I left the library, because I had no phone and I had no access. I was just there with this quiet, and I got nostalgic for it because there's no more quiet. Like trying to have quiet is really hard. But
I like that as a title, trying to have quiet.
somebody write that play.
Yeah.
But
Eric Rothman's saying woke and DEI are not disparaging terms. We agree. We agree that, but that's not the point. The point is that they're being used as weapons against us.
right,
Um,
it's the weaponization of very good ideas that I object to.
I I'm so so frustrated, and I've lived my life in a place of optimism. I've been through a couple near-death experiences and other things, tragedies. I've had my fill. I've always maintained a core of optimism. And right now, I don't know what to do.
It is hard. It definitely is hard. I won't even lie. I mean, I think it's been really interesting in the past couple weeks. Playwrights have reached out to us and they were like, I wanted to submit this play, but now I'm worried. Should I submit something else? And our response has been like, no, submit the play that you want us to read. Submit the play that you want to work on. That is, I mean, and again, it wasn't a lot of money, but we were very clear that we would not accept the NEA funding that we should have received this year. And part of it is because of the new, I don't call them guidelines, they are restrictions. Because of the new restrictions, we put our organization, our staff, and our artists at risk for whatever sort of punishment or legal action that these restrictions would take. Because again, we do not tell our playwrights what to write. And the new guidelines are vague and loose that we cannot, we just cannot be in a place where I would have to truck in some form of censorship. We can't. So we were very clear that there is no way that we can do our work as an artist service organization and accept our NEA funding. So we have rejected it.
I'm hearing that more and more.
Yeah.
Well, the NEA will have a lot more money to work with in the years to come because nobody's going to take their money this year. It, it, it's just
It's hard. It is hard,
back to
but
Eric.
we'll do.
Let me see what else Eric said. Let me see if he actually did change his view in this. Where is it? Oh gosh. Okay, woke and DEI are not disparaging terms. They're just terms for equality or reversing inequality. Yes, yes, we agree.
Yeah.
The
I think we would agree
disparagement
on
the
that. Yeah.
disparagement of those terms is just prejudice in service of dividing the country in the service of going back to a better time, like when slavery was legal, or going forward to Nazi process of yes, exactly. Yes, got it. Um, so then the unanswered question is, what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
we're going to keep working. I mean, I imagine we're going to have to march a bit. I imagine we have to call all of our local representatives. I think anyone who's got a special election coming up April 1st needs to go out and vote. I mean, I I know they are trying very, very hard to tear down the very foundations that this country was built on, and we are being put to a test. We are being put to a very, very real test. And in the ways that it is hard, but I have to be optimistic, we have to win. Like what is the alternative here? And that's what I say. What is the alternative? And
Autocracy.
I don't know. I don't actually think that's what people voted for. Maybe some people did, but I think and I think also as artists, again, when I brought up when I mentioned that Minnesota's a sort of outlier in our sort of rural urban populations, it's a thing that we really talk about and think about now, or like what are the ways in which the art we do can make it to other places, right? Like, how can it steer that conversation that we believe is so essential for understanding different voices, for building community, right? For creating empathy. So that is like I would say that's like the next sort of phase for the Playwright Center as we open this new building. We're really trying to think about what is that other work that we might do, and see how playwrights want to help join us in that work as well.
You have 2,500 members. Have you considered putting out a survey to them and sort of taking the temperature of what's going on politically and how it's affecting them?
We, sort of, my colleague Hannah does a lot of that work, and we've been thinking about it. I mean, I will say in the past couple of weeks, we've really been sort of um, focused on, how to respond to the NEA news and
So you've actually just broken the news to us. You're going to be rejecting your NEA funding.
well, we didn't make it public, but we sent out an email to anyone who's on our who has signed up for our newsletter. We've sent out several emails saying that we're not doing it. And then we were on Minnesota Public Radio talking about it. So it's actually not news for us, but we did not make a big public thing about it. We just sort of emailed people who support us and said, you may be wondering, here's why we're not going to accept it. And, we can't do our work and accept it.
Oh, they're not wondering. Um, any other comments from the room, or questions, or does anybody want to,
Yes,
before
and
we,
Rob's right. People really showed up and showed out to support us. It was really astonishing and wonderful.
to the room, does anybody have another comment or anything before I wind up? Um,
I'll
and by
just
the
say,
way,
I'll say something because I think I'm always telling people about the opportunities tool, and as a playwright, I use it. So I don't know what the administrators do, but it's really a fan.
just so everybody knows, this is Cindy Cooper.
Yeah, so in the Playwright Center, if you remember, they have opportunities that they list, and then you can bookmark them and you can put them in another space and look at them again. And then if you want to, you can put them in a.
Signing an agreement to give the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, and no
Well,
guarantee
that's
the
not
U.S.
me.
will continue
And
defending.
then you can track them. There's a submission tracker. It's like actually one of the best organized tools, and it's not that expensive. So, I mean, I always recommend it to people. Like people are always asking, how do you find out where to send stuff? This is one of the best tools.
Officials called the White House.
I don't have anybody else who's not muted. I don't know
But they were told Trump
who is
It's
that?
Lee.
again today.
Oh, it is Lee? Oh, okay. All right. So finish up what you were saying, Cindy, because I
Well,
couldn't.
I just finished really saying that the opportunities tool at the Playwright Center is worth the price of admission. And, just for nothing out for playwrights, just to see what's out there, what's happening, also to send stuff there if you have an opportunity, Bob, and to be able to track it. So I highly recommend it.
Well,
All my
thanks.
best friends, all my friends originally came from the Playwright Center. All my closest theater colleagues.
That's
Uh,
lovely to hear.
Okay. So before I wind up, does anybody have any more questions about the programs? And actually, Connor, I would like to ask you something. You're in Scotland. What is what is your impression of what's going on with us in the arts right now? Um,
Oh man. Well, it's not great.
there you go. It's not great, says Connor.
Not great. Yeah, I feel like people in Scotland are very much talking about like, oh man, isn't this crazy? Isn't this like, oh wow, it like in the States, and they're always asking me about it as if I know what the answer, or like I don't know what's going through their heads, right? I will say like it is a little different over here because so much arts funding is through the government, like the Arts Council of Scotland.
Oh, right. I
Um,
mean, but outside of the United States, there were many countries that are much more supportive of the arts.
yeah,
America has never been a big supporter of the arts.
no, never. Uh, and it comes with its own unique challenges, but it definitely doesn't come with the sort of like censorship and restrictions that the NEA now is coming with, and I'm sure the Kennedy Center is going to be listing a million restrictions.
The
It
Kennedy
definitely,
Center coup. That's like what?
yeah, I know, right?
He couldn't.
It
He
is
couldn't. He
adorable.
couldn't invade Gaza. He couldn't invade. He could take over Greenland. He couldn't. He couldn't take over the Panama. So he takes over the Kennedy Center. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, plant your flag in that and see how that goes.
the
Uh,
insanity is just overwhelming.
yeah.
Um, and I'm saying things that are probably going to be upsetting people who don't see things the same way we do. So I apologize to those people out there. Anyone else want to ask anything about the programs at the Playwrights Center before we um, wind up? Oh, by the way, I keep the room open so people actually can meet afterwards. I don't know if you can stay or not, Nicole, but you're welcome to.
Thank you. I
Um,
might have to run to greet my guests, but I'm going to drop the Playwright Center website in the chat. I should have done that earlier.
I'm sure Cindy did already, but go
Okay.
ahead.
All right.
Cindy was right on top of it. Cindy was
Several
like
times.
Thank you.
she elaborated on everything you said.
That's great.
Okay. So Nicole, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank
Can
Rob,
I'd say
you.
one other thing, because I think one really interesting thing about the applications to the Playwright Center, when they're evaluated, at least the Jerome, 50% is the script, 50% is an artistic statement and suitability for the program. So two different categories. And so it becomes really incumbent upon us as playwrights to be able to explain our work, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and it's our show our passion through that artistic statement. So
I'll also say one other thing that is unique to the Playwright Center is, and I'm sure as writers, you've had this experience where you send in your submission and you never hear anything. You'll just get a yes or a no. You can ask for feedback about your application through the Playwright Center. So, once the application season is over, there are people who reach out, and because we ask every evaluator to give feedback on the application, and then we can share like the play was really strong, but the artistic statement lacked clarity, or it seemed like that, and that is often why people apply and apply and apply, because we try and give feedback on how the application can be strengthened, so.
I'm not sure that being able to write a strong statement is the same as being able to write a good play. It also has to do with pitching. We talk about this with pitching all the way. The pitching skill is not the same as the playwriting skills.
It's not the same, but again, especially I would say for the Jerome and the Many Voices fellowships that require you to relocate to Minnesota, we do have to ask people why they would move here and what they plan to do for 2 years. So different applications, again, have different criteria. If we were just giving the money away and said you can do whatever you want and stay wherever you want, I think it would be different. But
I
you know,
always I
it is
always
a
think
relocation.
do you remember the TV show Rhoda? I always remember Rhoda saying, it's why are you moving to Minnesota? Well, it's cold and I'll keep better.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
that's what she used to say. So thank you, Nicole. I hope
Thank you so much. It
I
was
hope we covered everything.
delightful.
Oh, good. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I enjoyed having you. I warned you that I might be asking some of those questions.
No, it's great. It was great. And Rob, thank you for the introduction.
Honestly,
Uh,
I just can't not think about it. It's
yeah.
like,
No, of course, of course. Well, thank you
um,
all so much, everyone, and good luck. And I hope I see you around one way or another. Thank you.
and I'm going to say a little goodbye from to our YouTube audience. So everybody out there, thank you for being with us. Thanks to the room. Actually we got up to about 32 people. Maybe, I think it was more today. So you were well attended, Nicole. So thanks for being a draw. And for those of you out there who are finding us on YouTube or in our podcast series, which we will eventually get back to at some point. We are Theater Resources Unlimited, and our goal basically is to help people understand and navigate the business of theater. We do support playwrights, and we have programs that do some of the things, not nearly all of the things that Playwrights Center does. But most of it comes from the business point of view. We've been doing this for 32 years, and if you like what we do, and if you like being in the room today, or if you are watching us in the room today, if you'd like to be in the room, that's what I'm trying to say. If you'd like to be in the room, email me at trunltd@aol.com, trunltd@aol.com, and we'll send you an invitation to the Zoom room. Next week, we're going to be doing an introduction to our producer development and mentorship program. So that's a special community gathering that we do once or twice a year, actually. You're going to meet producers Jane Dubin and Dave Elliott, and they're going to tell you about the program and how it can benefit not just producers, but also artists who would benefit from knowing more about the business. Many producers have said this. They would much rather work with a writer or an artist who actually understands the business. So it's to your advantage to actually learn about it. 2 weeks we have, we're going to be talking about the Latinx voice in theater. I've got Jorge Huerta, and we also have Lua Moreno from Intar Theater, and they're going to talk about basically what's going on in the Latinx community in terms of playwriting and in context of generally what's going on with us now that we're having struggles and challenges on a government scale. So I hope that you'll join us in the future. I hope we'll see you. I'll be doing this every week. We've been doing this since April 17th, 2020. We completely appreciate and welcome people to come for free if that's what you have to do. We also ask you to consider making a donation or coming and paying a small price to come and join us in the conversations. And if you want to donate to us, you can do that easily. You can go to TRU Donate, trudonate.com, trudonate.com. Hope that you'll support us. We can use and we will appreciate any support you can give us. That's it, and see you soon.